In finance, you always look at return on investment, right?
Yes.
And for me, it is return on RO. I call it as ROCE, not ROI. Return on compassion and empathy is phenomenal for a leader. So I think you really need to look at how do you measure this. And for me, I think it's about the happiness that brings that you show to the. I mean, it brings about in the people, and also how loyal they become when you show compassion and empathy.
Hi, Vishy.
Hey, hi. Pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure to meet you, and thanks for joining our session today. It's a great pleasure to have you on this session, which is Beyond the Balance Sheet.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Vishy, you are an industry veteran, you are a business leader, you are a CEO of Randstad, and you're also a transformation turnaround expert. And more than everything else, at the core, you are a finance professional, right? You are a chartered accountant, and that to a rank holder. And you've had wide industry experience over 3 decades, cutting across multiple industries, diverse industries, right? And also across Indian conglomerates as well as US-based MNCs, whether it is TVS Group to start with, GE, Motorola, and now Randstad, and you've been here for a long time. And you are a CFO here, now moved on to a successful CEO role. Enormous experience and expertise. Our audience will be delighted to hear more from you, and if you can share your experience and insights of this journey from CFO to CEO. To begin with, would like to ask you a very pertinent and popular question, right? It's all about perception. In corporate world, perception is reality,
Right.
or considered to be a reality.
Right.
And most often, finance professionals are seen as number-oriented, not people-oriented. When they're not connected to people, they're connected to numbers. What is your experience as a CFO and now as a CEO? And did you make any specific attempt to change this perception about yourself as well as the people around you to perceive about the perception about finance? And why did you do that?
Well, okay, I think that's a great question, and perhaps a very pertinent question for any finance person to think about. Firstly, I must admit that finance is a very noble profession. I think it has evolved over time. At some point in time, there were watchdogs, and even before that, they were bloodhounds going after the sales team.
Correct, yeah.
Targets,
Yeah.
actuals, forecast.
Correct.
And then there was a period when they transformed into watchdogs. And then now I think it's more about co-driving the business, creating the strategy. So I think finance as a function has evolved. It's a very integral part of any organization because the question is, do they report to investors? Do they report to the senior management team? Or they also have the internal stakeholders within the company. End of the day, they drive accountability. So from that perspective, I have a great regard for that function. I think early in my career, I realized that finance needs to be a little bit more. And the reason why I say that is I went around listening to the voice of different functions. I used to go and meet salespeople. Tell me about your finance function. Likewise to operations or procurement or HR or IT, different teams within the organization. And some common themes came. Great people, very intellectually strong, very task-oriented.
Task-oriented, yeah.
And they deliver outcomes. The outcomes could be in terms of reporting, getting the books audited, compliance, making policies, etc. And I said, tell me more. They also came up with few other things. Oh, they are very dull. They're very boring.
The other side of finance.
Yeah, they are very bureaucratic.
Understood.
So to me, I think it was like a mix of great things and things which are more behavioral, which could have been improved or which could be bettered. So I realized that, okay, as a but as belonging to the finance fraternity, I need to do something to change the perception. And how much can I do to influence as many finance people or teams to change their mindset?
Here in Randstad, or you did this
No, I've
across
been
in other
doing it
companies as well?
in the past 2 decades. I've been doing it right from the time I was a CFO in 2004. That was the first time I became a CFO. And I realized that, I also have worked in great brands, but then I worked in businesses which were extremely challenging. They were in distress, either because they were losing money, they were not able to collect cash, or there were dissatisfied customers. So most of them were in the red.
Right. That's why probably you're called a turnaround expert.
Right. So I realized that there was a pattern when I looked closely. It was not that their products were bad. It was not that their services were bad, but it was the morale of the people in the organization which was not to the level that it should be. So this was causing a lot of challenges, no collaboration, no teamwork, and that was showing up in the results. So I realized that, by changing people's mindsets, you could change business fortunes, business results. So I started working on how, as a finance leader, I can create a culture of high performance, and how much can I influence the teams across, whether it is HR or the senior management, to adopt policies where people feel motivated. You cannot set unrealistic challenges and make people fail. You rather create a platform where people can overachieve, not by committing mediocre targets, realistic targets, but reward outperformance. So it could be through incentive policies. It could be through facilitating programs, and what can finance do to simplify? How can we drive more external focus than people spending a lot of time on expense claims and those kind of things? And I have done 3 transformations in my career so far. Everywhere, either the business has outperformed, gone out of the red, or has reached a stage of break even, and just because the people in the organization behave differently. So that's my forte, and I believe that that's a perfect recipe for anybody in finance to be more business partnering and be more strategic, and try and see how you can simplify things for your stakeholders within the company.
In your career journey from CFO to CEO, you would have come across multiple challenges. The challenges that you face and the lens you wear as a CFO versus the lens now you wear as a CEO, they may be different. What are the qualities and attributes that are keeping you successful in today's environment as a CEO that you owe it back to your finance function or a CFO hat that you were wearing?
I think the most critical part of my learning is customer centricity.
Understood.
I think you need to know who your customer is and how your work is impacting that customer. It could be an internal customer, it could be an external. So in finance, most often it is a lot of internal stakeholders. So I think it's about understanding how your work is impacting them, whether it's in a positive way or is it creating a roadblock, right? And as long as you have that customer focus, I think most often you're going to do the right things. Second thing is about...
Sorry to interrupt you here.
Sure.
As a CFO, were you very focused towards your customer? And as a CEO now, you are saying, no, you are more customer focused than as a CFO you were?
No, I mean, I think in any role, you got to have your customer focus. So as a CFO is when I began it, and now I think I got to do it a lot more.
Do you meet with your customers?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a coincidence that this year I began by reflecting on what is the need of the business. And I realized that we got to be a lot more external focused. We were doing a lot of things, a lot of meetings and workouts and things like that. So a lot of time was being spent on internal processes. If we are able to shift that externally, meet more clients, I think we could get a lot more from the same effort. So, and I needed to lead by example. So I set a goal for myself that I'm going to meet 50 of my top clients this year. And coincidentally, I think we're in the beginning of May and I've already met 55 of them.
Congratulations.
So, right. So I think it begins with that. And it's also a movement, right? As a leader, whether you're a CFO or a CEO, you got to garner the organization's support and energies. You have to channelize them in the way you think is the most productive.
Yes.
And if you are leading by example, people follow you, right? So I see now my sales teams doing more meetings. I see my client partnering team doing more meetings. So the number of external meetings has
gone up significantly, which in turn is resulting in better business results.
Absolutely.
Rishi, it is indeed very, very interesting to see a CFO meeting up with customers. Also, as a CEO, you are meeting up with customers, right? I have not seen in my career and experience that many CFOs go and meet up with customers, and they do carry a target for themselves that I need to go and meet up with 30, 40, 50 odd customers, right? So once you start leading by example, the rest of the organization, actually flock around and get each other. As it does improve your productivity, it does bind the people together. Any other skills that you have developed as a CFO now is actually serving you well as a CEO, which is kind of giving you time and ability to deal with various stakeholders and multitask many things, because as a CEO you have to have a lot of external focus and at the same time deal with the board, investors, and a whole bunch of others, right? So what are those skills that you have gained as a leader of finance and now able to utilize this effectively as a CEO?
Right. I think there are many. I will talk about a couple of them. One is about curiosity, intellectual curiosity. I think we are, as finance people, great analytical skills. We know how to report numbers. Now, how does a non-finance person articulate these? How do they assimilate and translate that into actual actions that lead to business, outcomes? So, for example, I think if it is a collection meeting, I think most often we know how to steer it based on receivables, what's your overdues, what's your DSO. I think we are, as finance people, we are naturally good at that.
Yes.
But I think what I think about is, why is a client not paying invoice?
Road cars,
right? It's about getting a little bit deeper into, is my invoices going on time? What's the time taken from the invoice to actually it reaching the customer's gate?
And
of course, today with automation, a lot of them are e-invoices, but typically it could be multiple reasons. It could be because one, we delayed the invoicing in itself, or it could be a courier delay, or it was never received by the recipient.
Or by the person concerned.
And there could be a bureaucracy within the client organization where it has to go to different desks for approval. So for me, I think it's a simple thing is, I look at it like an ATM machine. I go and drop 100 rupees of cash in my bank account. I go to the next machine, print my passbook. It's already reflecting there. So I always think about, if I'm raising an invoice in my books, how much time does it take to reflect as a payable in my client's book? And if that distance you are able to reduce, there is no way there is going to be delay. There will be very few clients who delay it because of cash flow or other reasons. It's mostly the process that takes time. So if you are able to address that process, I think there is no reason why you will have overdues. So start thinking a little bit deeper into what's the root cause? What is it that I can control? What is it that I don't control? The second thing I would say is, as a finance leader, we really need to use that tool of reflection, right? It's a very powerful tool. I do reflections every day.
For yourself or in a larger meeting?
It's about how I play on my mind. What did I do from 9 to 6 in the evening? Which meetings did I attend? And did I do well? What could I have done better? So I think about self-improvement, and sometimes it could be that I did something wrong. What should I do to correct that action? So if I was wrong with somebody, I behaved in a way which was rude or something, make a point to call them in the end of the day and say, hey, this meeting went this way. I know I told you this, and this is what led me to do that.
Very nice.
So that allows you to also follow a constant process of
Improvement.
and course correction.
Correct.
And that helps leaders to also get better organized, right? So these are a couple of things. Of course, there are quite a few, which also are important. It's also about adhering to timelines. Most often, and this could be my perception, but most often I think we don't plan well. We plan our own deliverables within the finance department, but we don't set up those meetings in anticipation of, okay, after this closing, I have a review that needs to happen. So let me respect other people's calendars, fix those toll gates so that I can, go and make that reviews as soon as my closure is done. But we realize it only after the closure that, hey, I need to set up that meeting.
Leadership as a CEO is not about just a business facing. You have multiple priorities, etc. Right. So you're also dealing with people, which is a very, very sensitive area. And I've heard about your belief that compassion and empathy are extremely critical to success as a leader. Right. Would love to understand a little more about your view and how are you, what is your authentic self, and how are you as a compassionate leader able to really drive high performance by bringing in a culture of empathy amongst your teammates?
I think we often think that some of these empathy and compassion are born traits. People get it through their genes.
DNA and genes.
Yeah. But I think, to me, I think it's all about growth mindset. If you want to grow these traits, you need to really focus and cultivate it.
In a systematic way.
Now, COVID taught us a lot of lessons. And I think, and it's also to do with the era, right? There was a period where it was very authoritarian leadership. Your boss gives you instructions, you just execute it, right? And if you don't you don't execute well, then you're going to be shouted upon or condemned, right? I think that's one style. It may perhaps work for some period of time, but that's not a sustainable thing. People would just leave the organizations and go. So I think you need to have a leadership style which is a little bit more situational. You need to be sometimes authoritative. You need to be sometimes following a coaching style.
Understood.
Sometimes more democratic, where you need people to accept what you're saying. So I think it has to be a style which is to the situation. COVID brought in a lot of changes to leadership styles. And that's when people started talking a lot more about empathy and compassion, right? So what is empathy? Empathy is about, okay, somebody says, I have a personal situation. There is a grief in the family. Somebody got an accident. They hurt their leg. They are not able to come to work. I think you make a call, empathize about, oh no, I'm sad that it happened. How are you coping with it? I hope you have the right kind of attention. Take a break, come back to work when you feel that you're okay. Now, that's not good enough. That's okay, but
that's a good start, and it's a genuine emotion.
To me, compassion is a little bit more, right? If you know that because of that injury, this person is not going to be there for 2 weeks, somebody has to manage his work. If he's going to come back after 15 days and see that his workload has piled up and he's going to, next few days, he's going to work overtime, it's going to be a slog, I think you're not being compassionate. Compassionate is also about making that additional effort to say, by the way, I know that you're not going to be in for 2 weeks. I'm going to assign your work to somebody in your team, and they would step up. And we want to make sure that, you are not disturbed. We want you back to work as and when you feel good about it, right? So that's taking that extra step to ensure that you're showing real compassion and then making them feel reassured that whatever happened to you, I think you don't need to be regretful about it. So I always look at myself as, for me, the definition of, in finance, you always look at return on investment, right? And for me, it is return on I call it as ROCE, not ROI. Return on compassion and empathy is phenomenal for a leader. So I think you really need to look at how do you measure this. And for me, I think it's about the happiness that brings that you show to it brings about in the people, and also how loyal they become when you show compassion and empathy. They become your followers, and they do more than what they usually do, and that's that extra bit of performance that
uplift, that you end up getting. Brilliant. So return on capital employed to return on compassion and empathy, right? That's a fantastic transformation, and this may be an intangible one, right? You're not physically trying to create more assets, but here you're sweating your existing human capital, which is your biggest asset, trying to transform productivity. Right? So how does it impact your team dynamics? Do you have any instances or examples of how this has helped you in decision making, or it has helped you in managing some major crisis? Can you show us, give us some examples?
Well, there are quite a few examples, and sometimes as a leader, I don't remember that, but people kind of remember experiences. There are people who come from very remote locations. Our own employees, let's say they are sitting in Bhubaneswar or Kolkata or something like that. Now they come to head office. Now that's a big deal for them. So they're coming here to visit Bangalore either for a training program or a learning experience, and then they have an extra half a day. Let me go to my office, meet as many people as possible. So they have never lived the headquarters experience. So when they come here, sometimes they don't have an appointment, but they're walking in the corridors, and I see them, and immediately I feel that, for this person, meeting a CEO in Bangalore office is going to be a big experience of a lifetime. How can I make that 5 minutes special for them? So I bring them in, have a conversation, look eye to eye, and check about, how their branch is. How do they find working in a remote location? Do they receive all the communication? Are they connected with the organization, mission, vision, purpose? And what support we can extend. It's a very small coffee conversation. But for me, it leaves a big impact on them. So as a leader, you should always think about, what do I do? What action of mine ticks in their mind? And then I get a lot of time, people come back and say, remember that 5-minute conversation we had in Bangalore 2 years ago?
Yes.
I've doubled my branch. It was this size, now it is so big. And thanks for all the resources that you provided. So I think it creates a very different dynamic in them. And that's one, one thing I would say, we should all, as leaders, do a lot more.
Did you do this as a CFO, or you've started doing more frequently as a CEO now?
No, I have been, it's about also behaviors which you want to invest on, right?
Invest on, yes.
I do it a lot more as a CEO.
Consciously now.
Yeah, consciously now, but definitely as a CFO, I used to do it not for maybe all the functions, but at least for my team. If I have a remote team, I go and really understand, how do they feel? I think that question, how do you feel today? That
touches the chord in them.
That touches their heart.
Yeah.
And also able to make them feel valued. There are certain roles in finance. Now we are a large business.
Very true.
If I win a new customer account, the sales team gets highlighted. If I execute well, my recruiters, my account managers, their targets are achieved, they get highlighted. So when you're doing a town hall, there are all people. There are also finance people, right? Some people who are doing book closing, month-end closing. They're working, burning the midnight oil to close on time. Audits, tax departments, they need to follow up for tax refunds or assessments being completed.
Time bound. Yeah.
How do they relate to the organization's mission? How are they contributing to the organization's success? And do they get rewarded or mentioned, called out in these meetings, right? So we often look at, people who have done a phenomenal job, like they got a huge tax refund, I think we call them out so that people in the business also know what the functions are doing.
Exactly what they have done, how they have been able to contribute to the overall growth of the company.
So I think it's about positioning them, and this spurs out an outperformance, right? I can tell you another classic example. I was in a account receivables meeting, and we were discussing about overdues and why clients are not paying on time, right? So and the conversation was going all over the place, different reasons.
Becoming emotional and charged up as well, right?
So I asked the finance team, do we pay our suppliers on time?
Brilliant
right?
question, yeah.
So we have the right to expect our clients to pay us on time if we are paying all our suppliers on time. So we started measuring days payable outstanding instead of days sales outstanding.
Okay, DSO to DPO.
Right. So the moment you start paying your suppliers on them, hey, now we have the moral ground to go after our clients, right? So let's do it. So I think it drove a very different behavior of from procurement team to actually getting all the invoices, booking them in the system. And I told them why we are insisting this, because then your expenses, in finance there is a matching principle, your revenues and costs should match. So if your suppliers are not sending all the invoices, and if you're not making the right accruals, your cost and revenues are imbalanced. So by pushing these invoices upfront, we got our purchase accounting right, so our costs became right. Our supplier payments started becoming more regular. And now I think we have the responsibility to go and ask our clients to pay us on time.
A very logical way, maybe.
Absolutely.
This is where your financial brain probably has kicked in, and even as a CEO, you kind of expressed this in very clear, measurable ways. And you're changing the mindset,
right?
Not just looking at only from a DSO perspective, but a DPO. And once you start living it,
right,
suddenly the mindset has changed, and you become more convinced, and you have a lot of conviction in you to go and ask the customer, saying that, hey, this is my expense, this is my receivable from you, and this is not matching, and it is sustainability or whatever. The cash flow is in danger. And people will appreciate it. Today, I think companies are mature enough to understand, as you rightly said in the earlier part of the conversation, that customers, maybe because of cash flow or some other crisis, not paying up is very rare, right? It is because of some process-related issue or some unforeseen things that have happened, but nobody is driving it or tracking it step by step, right? So setting the process right is also something very, very critical as a leader, right? In all this journey, empathy that you talked about is very, very interesting, right? It is maybe invisible asset, but you weaponized it. And weaponization of empathy is a skill. And that gives a huge compounding effect within the organization. How did you go about measuring this tangibly within your scorecard that you may have for you and your team?
Well, I think measuring, of course, I'm a Six Sigma proponent.
Wonderful. Yeah, that also I read about in your profile. Yeah.
So I think what gets measured gets improved. So I think you need to really create some scorecards which help you measure empathy. It could be things like anger management. So it's very easy to get frustrated and throw tantrums. But I think it's also about checking yourself and ensuring that you're not abusing your authority, because obviously finance function is very authoritative. You're empowered to kind of drive organization performance, hold people accountable. So I think You need to control that part. But more importantly, I think it's also about developing soft skills.
You've been a successful CEO and you've had varied industry background. So you come from TVS Group and you also have worked in GE. You are a black belt in Six Sigma and you've had experience in Motorola. And again, you've rejoined GE for some time in various other roles. Having this diversified work experience, do you think is very, very critical for a CFO to become a CEO, and it will kind of help them very well in their CEO journey?
Absolutely. I think today the number one thing is about learning agility, right? And when you do roles which are non-conventional, you have a lot that you can learn. You know, it's about, I talked about customers. It's about solving problems. I think most often we fail in defining the problem the right way. That's the first step actually in solving a problem. You need to define
it correctly.
And the moment you have defined it, you also need to see, Six Sigma talks about a DMAC approach: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Right? So if you follow that methodology, most often we address the surface of the problem. A client reported an issue. Somebody is assigned the task, they address it. Now, Six Sigma talks about repeatability and reproducibility. Now, that problem can repeat again for some other customer, right? Or in some other process. So, am I addressing the root cause of the issue? And that requires a thorough probing, especially in areas like, compliance. It could be provident fund, or it could be paying salaries on time, or it could be paying suppliers on time. Address the root causes, not just solve that situation, that issue. Then I think it repeats. Second thing is variation, right? In any process, you need to control the variation. If the variation is large, it's going to give you a lot of quality issues. So let's say if you are looking at a process of month closing, book closing, what's the time it takes? So when should I start? When should it end? And then what's the variation? How many months did I close it 2 days before? How many times did I close it on time? How many times did I close it 3 days after time? If that is the case, then your variation is plus or minus 5 days, right? So how can I bring that down to 2 days?
2 days.
Either I close 1 day before or on date or 1 day after. Then you control the variation. So I think if finance people can apply this, I think it can give a lot of, they can control the overall process. I talked about repeatability and reproducibility, right? So most often in finance departments, people are scared, they are always overworked. Headcount in finance is always a luxury to have.
Frowned upon.
So I think you need to ensure process is repeatable, right? And what I say as repeatable is, if I am doing a certain process in a certain way, tomorrow if Ramesh is doing that process, is he doing the same way as Vishy was doing? Right? So how can that happen? Through automation, through simplification. Reproducibility is, if I'm doing the process in a certain way, and 1 week later, if I'm asked to do the same process again, will I do it in the same way or in a different way? So I think if those two are controlled, I think there will be a lot of freedom, or rather flexibility for finance people. Okay, I can take a vacation. In my
there is work-life balance for them eventually.
Ramesh will be able to do the same job in the same way, right?
Without much bias or variation within the
But often we are like very people dependent. Or if this person goes on leave, this whole organization is going to be a standstill. So I think those are some concerns which I see often here in finance teams. So I would recommend a Six Sigma orientation. Today, I think the DMAC approach is much more simplified. You have Lean Six Sigma. Things can, you can just use the tools. If not, qualify as a Six Sigma, get a certification. at least use the tools. The fishbone is a great way to do root cause. A Pareto chart is a great way to understand the 80-20 rule. What are 80% of the problems causing, what are 20% of the problem causing 80% of the defects? So familiarizing these tools can make you a lot more, creative in terms of, solving problems.
We talked about automation, and I do remember, you're talking about digital tsunami happening in one of your podcasts that I happened to watch.
Yeah,
I would like to understand your play, the digital transformation play that you are adopting for your organization, and how is it impacting you in terms of business risk?
So to me, I think, digital transformation and digital tsunami is the order of the day. I was speaking to someone about, there is often this question about what's going to change. 2040, how will things be? What will finance roles become, extinct? AI is coming. Will these jobs remain? That's a common concern for all people, right? And there is no point in getting worried about the future because we don't know what's going to change, right? Because 2040 is a long time away, 16 years from now. Instead, I start thinking about what is not going to change in 2040. If I look back 20 years before and now, what I was worried 20 years before and what's happening now, the thing that is not changing is clients' expectations around speed, quality, and cost. I want the product at the fastest cycle time. In those days, maybe the fastest cycle time was 24 hours. Today, with the Swiggy and Instamart, it's like 6 minutes. Right? And so that's the speed part. And then the quality. I think, as Indians, we always want the best quality product, right? Nobody likes a product which, when you open from the box, is not working. So that's not going to change. And then the third one is the cost. I need all the features, but I need it at a most economical price. Maybe a few years ago, we used to buy an Android phone, 25,000 rupees. That was the best phone in the market. Today, people don't mind spending 150,000 to buy an iPhone, right? Or even a Samsung Android phone comes at that price. But they're willing to pay for the features and the experience they get from that. And it evolves as the generation, maybe the Gen Zs are a lot more savvy about technology. So they don't mind investing on some of the luxuries in which they aspire for. So if you start thinking about what's not going to change, then you can design your products, design your services, design your systems to meet those three requirements. 80% of the problem you're addressing. And 20% is the change. Okay, this technology may get extinct, something else will come, which is fine. So it's still most of the process you control. So if you start thinking about that, not be fearful, be open to change, continue to be curious, continue to be learning, I think.
You also talked about Gen Z, and in today's world, millennials and Gen Z, they have their own lifestyle. They are multi-threading all the time, and they also have significant instant gratification, like the way things have changed, right? And everything is Swiggy and Zomato, they deliver it in maybe Zepto, they deliver it in less than 10 minutes, right? There's a lot of everything, the instant results that are coming in, and they don't want to be committed to something. Even in your finance profession, there are a lot of Gen Z who are coming in today, right? So they don't believe in job for life, or what we call as an iron rice bowl, right? So that concept has vanished or fading away. So what would be your advice, and specifically for Gen Z finance professional, and how do you deal with them, and what would be your advice for them to, if they want to be in the journey to a CEO, and what should they start focusing on?
Well, whether you like it or not, 74% of our workforce in future will be Gen Z. Because the average age of the economy, the country, is about 29 years. So they are going to form the bulk of your workforce, whether it is finance or sales or any function. So we got to learn to manage them. They come with excellent skills. They're capable of taking challenges. They don't resist from doing the conventional things. They care for experience, right? And they also care for independence. So you cannot be micromanaging them. So most often we want to give instructions and we want teams to follow it. But Gen Zs like to be a little bit more independent. They like to bring in their best version at work. They like a place where they can feel belonged. So, so if you are able to kind of give them that which they aspire for, they can bring phenomenal results. And they don't like, to move the career the way it is. They like to say, they like the freedom to say 4 days I want to work, the 5th day I want to go trekking, right? So their passion is, so I think as leaders, you got to embrace their passion. There is a passion which is professional. There is also a passion which is their personal, which they want to. And as long as managers, we are kind of investing time, giving them the right guidance. Of course, you still want them to perform. Nobody has a free lunch. But at the same time, make those personal collections. Find out what they aspire for and how. And if you are able to show that interest in some of their things which they aspire for, I think it can have a big impact on their productivity. But they're very talented, and we should not be too kind of critical about this the way I want it to be done, but rather define the outcome that you want, give them the freedom to do the way they think they would deliver.
They would be able to deliver. And the first time CFOs or the CFOs who are wanting to become a CEO, what would be your 2 cents that you want to kind of share with them, saying that, hey, you do these. Probably it'll help you in your journey and accelerate your journey. Right. What would those be?
I would say first one is create your own network, right? Okay. Expand your network. Right.
Network is network.
Yeah. Network is network. Yeah, absolutely.
Network is network.
And the network has to be not just making connections, but making meaningful connections. So it could be, CFOs across your industry. It could be other functions, So basically that would be a big win because most often we are very introverts, right? We are not really socially available. Be prominent on social media, because there are a lot of today. I think if you see what ticks the economy is the influencers, whether it is for a food or whether it's for a tourism. I think there are a lot of
influencer economy. Yeah.
So you can be an influencer. You can create a community of followers who really look forward to what works for you. They aspire for role modeling you. So I think you need to become a role model. Right? The other things which I think are, strategy. Any business runs on a strategy, right? It's about, and strategy is something where you will decide what you will do. More importantly, you'll also decide what you will not do.
Trade off.
Right? Trade off. And the question which I ask is the who, what, how, right? So basically the what is about, the where and the how. Where do we want to play as an organization, right? And then how will we win? So if we are able to kind of articulate these questions, co-create those strategies with the business teams, then I think finance people will become a lot more strategic in their mindset. The last thing I would say is also about, I said reflections. So very important tool.
Very important.
And constantly look for a 360-degree feedback because there are a lot of biases. Sometimes you're not self-aware. right? You have a lot of blind spots which
yeah.
you don't recognize.
Recognize.
So have a mentor, have a coach who can actually give you advice about situations. I have a community of 144 finance people who have worked with me in the past,
Okay.
and who like to be part of the community. And I set aside Saturdays of 4 to 6. I had a review with my boss. For anyone to call me, it was a tough review. This is what happened. What do you advise? Somebody says, I got a job offer. I'm thinking about a switch. What do you think? Is this a good company I should join? So a lot of people reach out to ask, and I believe that my contribution to the finance community is to see how they grow in their careers. Fortunately for me, out of this 144, about 23 of them are CFOs in different companies, and they have grown along with me.
You seem to be good with numbers, 144 and 23. You still
Yeah, I
remember
mean, I
a lot of-
remember because
you're
I have a
counting
call
all
every
the
Friday,
connects and
every
contacts,
Saturday.
yeah.
I talk to them. So for me, I think it's about how can I grow this network, and sometimes it's not just about you, it's also about what you can give back to society.
Give back to society and industry. These are very, very interesting thoughts, and they're very, very special to all of us, because I've personally learned a lot from this kind of conversation interaction. One last question on the personal side. You seem to be extremely fit, and I'm sure you are working very hard on the business side of things. And what do you do in your spare time to keep you fit and agile in terms of personal fitness, but as well as mental fitness, in terms of what do you read, etc.? Can you share with us?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think I talked about the Good to Great book, right?
Yes.
So it talks about personal discipline and professional will.
Professional.
So every leader, in order to be successful, should have a sense of personal discipline. And what's that personal discipline? It's about how you spend your day, right? For me, a day doesn't start. I'm an early morning person, so I get up almost at 5 a.m.
Okay.
And for me, that 5 to 6:30 is my me time. So I'm in the gym in my rooftop, do a little bit of physical exercise. And then the last 30 minutes is more about a little bit of calming down. It could be yoga, or it could be a little bit of meditation, just to ensure that, I'm fit for the day. And then the next half an hour is more about looking at my calendar and seeing what schedules, what meetings I have, who am I meeting, and what should I be, what's my role in those meetings, right?
Wonderful.
And then I decide about what do I want to achieve out of these meetings. End of the day, you cannot be getting into the meeting without a clear objective, right? And then, of course, you have a grind. Sometimes you also have some things which pop up.
Yeah.
I have a great executive assistant. He ensures that I have enough space for those surprise things that come. And of course, you got to end with, we do have, sometimes we do have evening parties or something like that. But it's also about where do you want to cut that line, right?
In fact.
So sometimes office parties can be scheduled starting at 7, going up to 12.
Yeah.
Now, at Randstad, we clearly say that, the party ends at 9 or 9:30 or something like that, because we also want people to go back home safe and come back next day.
Next day, the best version of themselves.
Right. So it's about, putting in those rules so people are clear about, okay, what it is. Of course, there may be somebody who wants to have a little bit more extent, but that's their personal stuff. So I think it's about, as a leader, you got to create those frameworks and rules. And if you are disciplined, then I think you'll also see others getting disciplined.
Others following you.
Yeah. And there are cases where, we used to have meetings where people used to show up late, and most often, okay, it's a 9 a.m. meeting. It would be that, okay, the traffic, or it could be that, okay, I had this call. Usually those are excuses, right? And as a leader, if you are able to show up at 8:59, I think everybody shows up.
Everybody, yeah.
So it's actually changed the culture of the organization.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we believe in a culture of discipline, culture of high performance. And the more and more you drive it, I think the organization also starts accepting it. So I think you have to role model it.
Excellent. No, leading it from the front, right?
Right.
Right from planning your day to expecting outcome from every meeting that you are attending to essentially ensuring that there is discipline woven around the organization for everything, right? That's an excellent.
Sometimes people can say, "Oh, that's very boring stereotype," but I think if you are managing an organization of 2,000 people and 70,000 people who work for us,
Yes.
I think you have to make those compromises, and it may not necessarily be applicable for the young people. Maybe they like to have a late out party, or but I think as a leader you got to show the path, show the way. And it's
Today's discipline is tomorrow's success, right?
Absolutely.
So there is no moving the discipline out of the equation, right? If you want to be successful as a company, you're not running a charity, right? Today, end of the day, we're all in it for business, and if the outcome has to be successful, there has to be some discipline, and there has to be a rhythm, business rhythm that will propel you to success, right? And setting it yourself, leading it from the front, and with empathy woven around it is a great, success formula.
Yep.
Awesome. No, we really learned a lot from today's conversation. And once again, thank you very much for joining our show Beyond the Balance Sheet.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. It's a pleasure talking to you as well.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Thank you.